Hello, this is Paranormal Times, and today I will talk about the difference between incubus and succubus. The key differences between incubus versus succubus. Incubus and succubus are two words between which a difference can be identified. The terms incubus and succubus are used in medieval Christianity to refer to the spirits or demons that had sexual intercourse with sleeping men and women. They used to lie upon sleeping individuals and had sex with them to beget children. Many people remain confused between incubus and succubus because of the fact that both are demon spirits. Despite similarities, there are differences between incubus and succubus that will be highlighted in this article. What is an incubus? An incubus is a male demon or spirit that visits sleeping women at night to have sexual intercourse with them. Both incubus and succubus are demonic spirits that pay visits to their victims during the night. Continual sexual relationships with the demonic spirits can lead to deterioration of health. What is a succubus? A succubus is a female spirit and lies upon sleeping males to have sex with them. The term succubus is not just there in Christianity but also in psychiatry, as disturbed women go to psychiatrists to report their violations during their sleep. There are clergymen who say that demons cannot have sex with sleeping women, but there is a mention of these creatures in Bible, and one cannot refute the claims of a woman who she is sexually abused by spirits during her sleep. Psychologists have sought to explain the phenomenon of incubus and succubus in terms of sexual taboos in religion, especially Christianity. Women can easily pass on the buck of unwanted pregnancy and incest on these demons to escape the wrath of the elders. Whatever the truth, the fact remains that there are people who strongly believe in these mythical creatures. And there was a very famous story called The Entity, and I'm going to read a little bit about it for you. It is a very true story. In 1989, a single mother, Jackie Hernandez, moves into a small, unassuming bungalow in San Pedro in California. The events began in a rather benign way but quickly escalated in one of the most dangerous hauntings ever recorded. The disturbing phenomenon weighed heavily on Hernandez, who was newly divorced and expecting her second child. Strange noises could be heard throughout the house, including voices coming from empty rooms and the attic. There were weird lights and shadows, pungent smells, and objects moving of their own accord, including a framed picture that flew off the wall, crashing several feet away from its origin. Hernandez witnessed a water-like substance pouring inexplicably from a lighting fixture, and it was soon evident that she was living in a haunted house. After the birth of her daughter, Hernandez knew she had to do something. Her family were more vulnerable than ever, and her sanity was slowly slipping away. After months living through the barrage of paranormal activity, Hernandez had a face-to-face encounter with evil. One evening, after putting the children to bed, Hernandez encountered the ghost that had been haunting her home. She watched in horror as a face began to materialize out of the darkness. The distorted face turned into a full-bodied apparition of a decrepit old man in shabby clothes. The darkness in his eyes chilled her to the core. This was not the case of a friendly family spirit dropping in to check on the children. This was something dark and negative. Hernandez called in a team of paranormal investigators led by one of the most well-respected names in the field, Dr. Barry Taff. Taff was affiliated with the Parapsychology Research Lab out of UCLA. He was accompanied by a small team of investigators and photographers, including a cameraman, Barry Conrad, and a photographer, Jeff Wheatcraft. Conrad and Taff had investigated numerous paranormal encounters, including the 1974 incident known as the Entity Case. Considered one of the most well-documented and scientifically researched hauntings, the case was the basis of the 1983 movie starring Barbara Hershey, also called The Entity. Dr. Taff acted as an advisor on the film. The story of The Entity follows Doris Byther, fictional name Carla Moran, and her 4 children who experienced severe paranormal disturbances in their Culver City home. The events quickly escalated from disturbing to violence. Taff, a colleague from UCLA, and a team of research assistants were called in to investigate the event. It quickly became apparent that this was no ordinary haunting. Something strange and powerful was at work in their home. Doris Byther was the target of this unusually strong energy, possibly a poltergeist. Paranormal activity and physical attacks were common. Nothing researchers did seemed to lessen the severity. What shocked the investigators was Byther's claim that she was sexually assaulted by malevolent entities in her home. According to Byther, 2 male entities held her down and another larger one raped her. The attacks happened frequently and sometimes in front of witnesses. Among the numerous anomalies witnessed by Taff and his team were extreme temperature drops, repulsive smells of rotten flesh, strange lights, and what can only be described as an almost full-bodied apparition. Witnesses reported erratically moving balls of bright lights that coalesced into the upper torso of a human figure. The Entity Case garnered national attention from both media and scientific world, and propelling the careers of Dr. Taff and Barry Conrad. The film version received mixed reviews. Horror fans loved it, but it was dismissed as a true story by most of Taff's and Conrad's academic contemporaries. But the multiple witnesses would say different. Similarities can be drawn from both the Culver City and the San Pedro cases. Although in the San Pedro case, a bystander, not the homeowner, was the target of the physical attacks. In August 1989, during the initial investigation of the Hernandez residence, the team witnessed peculiar evidence which included strange balls of glowing lights, muffled, disembodied voices, and loud banging sounds coming from the empty attic. Photographer Jeff Wheatcraft made his way up to the attic to investigate. While in the attic, Wheatcraft's camera was violently and inexplicably pulled from his hands. The lens and the body of the camera were thrown forcefully, landing in the opposite ends of the room. Some of the other unusual activity happening at the San Pedro home, including the inexplicable appearance of a liquid substance found oozing from the walls and floors. No source of origin could be found from the strange, viscous fluid. Samples of the substance were sent to a lab where it was determined to be male human blood plasma. In September 1989, Conrad and the team returned to the San Pedro house after receiving a frantic call from Hernandez. The activity was reaching a crescendo, and Hernandez was in fear for her life. Jeff Wheatcraft hesitantly went upstairs to the attic to take photographs with fellow photographer Gary Boehm, aka Gary Bine. Hernandez, Conrad, and neighbour Susan Casanenda anxiously waited downstairs, and within seconds they were startled by a loud, painful moan coming from above. It was Jeff Wheatcraft fighting for his life. Suddenly, and without warning, Wheatcraft fell victim to a powerful paranormal source. Within seconds of entering the attic, something unseen wrapped a clothesline around his neck, lifting his body over the rafters, and secured the rope to a nail, essentially hanging him. Amazingly, Gary Boehm snapped several pictures of the exact moment of the attack. These photographs are some of the most compelling pieces of visual phenomenon that could be seen. Jim Harold's notes: I do not have rights to include these pictures here, but they can be found on the internet. In the now famous pictures, you can clearly see Jeff Wheatcraft's look of terror, head tilted to one side, clothesline wrapped tightly around his neck. Boehm rushed to loosen the rope, bending the nail in the process. Shaken, pale, and utterly confused, the pair quickly joined the team downstairs. If Boehm had not been in the attic at the time, Wheatcraft believes he would have surely died. The rope burns around his neck showed the aggressiveness and the severity of the attack. It was later determined that the rope was tied in a nautical bowline knot, used commonly by seamen working on the San Pedro docks. Jackie Hernandez felt the haunting had become more and more dangerous. She moved out of the bungalow shortly after the incident. It soon became apparent that the source of the activity was not tethered to the property itself. She relocated to Walden, California, but the paranormal still plagued the young single mother who was on the verge of a complete mental break. Hernandez was alone, fighting a powerful force she did not understand. She called the only people who seemed to believe her deadly plight. Apprehensively, the investigative team made their way to Walden, determined to finally get to the bottom of the haunting. Conrad, Wheatcraft, Hernandez, and a neighbor tried to communicate with the entity during a séance. They used a Ouija board as a means to connect with the spirits. Sitting around a table in a storage shed with their finger on the planchette, the investigators began asking questions. A camera crew attempted to film the session. The answers received from the board seemed to indicate that the spirit was that of a murdered dock worker from San Pedro. But it was much more than that. When asked how many ghosts were among them, the board answered, "Phantoms fill the skies around you." When asked why Wheatcraft was attacked, the entity answered that Wheatcraft resembled his killer. After ending the communication session, the spirit once again attacked Jeff Wheatcraft. Witnesses claimed that he was suddenly pulled from his seat, levitated in midair, and violently thrusted backwards against the wall of the storage shed. Unfortunately, the cameras that were recording the event all malfunctioned at the exact same time. This was the second deadly attack on Jeff Wheatcraft. Jackie Hernandez suffered with the haunting for more than 3 years, but the scars left on her soul remain forever. Jeff Wheatcraft was never the same after the San Pedro haunting. Besides being attacked by a ghost, he was attacked by droves of non-believers and skeptics who accused him and the team of faking the entire series of events. It is possible that this and the Culver City case were nothing but elaborate hoaxes. Possible, but not probable. Something strange was going on, something out of the normal, and by definition something paranormal. There were numerous eyewitnesses to each occurrence as well as an unprecedented amount of recorded data. The film footage and photographs are considered some of the best evidence of the paranormal ever captured. Dr. Barry Taft devoted his life to studying this and other extreme haunted cases. He has been quoted as saying, "There is no such thing as the paranormal. It's a misnomer." He claims it's all a complex psychological phenomenon known as RSPK, recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis of 0-point energy, where the mind physically manifests the perceived paranormal events. Like the entity case, he believes that there is something much more complex at work. Taft believed that Jackie Hernandez and Doris Byther were causing the poltergeist activity. They were the agents, the source of the energy that turned their world upside down. Their unconscious minds were running amok, emitting so much power that objects could be manipulated physically and audio phenomenon created out of thin air. Jeff Wheatcraft became the victim of his power for reasons only Jackie Hernandez could know. She had the ability to create a devastating and possibly deadly force from within. Similar to poltergeist phenomenon, RSPK needs an agent. It's not demonic, yet it could be mistaken for such. So is it normal or is it paranormal when one's energy causes such incidences? Taft believes it's internal, emanating from some powerful portion of our subconscious. It's not the disembodied spirit of a once living person. It's not dark energy from an evil demon. It's not a ghost, unless we are our own ghosts. But it begs the question, are we haunting ourselves? My personal opinion is that our SPK could possibly account for some of what is happening in both cases, but not all of it. There are more than a few holes in that theory. What happened in San Pedro and Culver City is not cut and dry, and I think the incidences have more in common with extreme hauntings than just poltergeist activity or RSPK, according to many paranormal experts. Jackie Hernandez and Doris Byther were the typical poltergeist agent, which is usually a teenager and sometimes an older woman going through the menopause. There were things reported that, to me, point to an angry human spirit, or possible an inhuman energy with an agenda of chaos and destruction. Why would a woman consciously or unconsciously put her children in danger, right in the line of fire, so to speak? Why would she target a stranger or manifest apparitions resembling humans? Why didn't the activity burn out quickly like in most poltergeist cases? Scientific and paranormal experts have studied the cases and may have a better understanding of the details that someone, like me, the person who wrote this, is drawing conclusions from reports and evidence some 25 years after the fact. But I know it would be remiss to completely rule out the possibility of a more traditional, yet just as terrifying cause of extreme cases such as this. When ghost attacks, they do so for a reason. Jackie Hernandez was not a random victim. Jeff Wheatcliff certainly was not just someone in the wrong place at the wrong time. Sometimes the paranormal has to be experienced to be believed. The more severe the account, the harder it is for others to accept. I've had a fair share of physical paranormal encounters and psychological attacks, and I cannot accept the idea that I was the source, the essence of the energy that powered the activity. The human mind is complex, and there is much to learn about its power. Science may someday have a better understanding and the intricacies at work inside our brains, but I cannot dismiss the idea that our consciousness can sometimes survive after death. So, are ghosts the cause of all paranormal activity? Probably not. There are some things we simply can't explain with our current understanding of the world. Maybe the most frightening thing is not the spirit that haunts our house, but the entity from within. How do we fight a ghost inside us? It's completely out of our control. But how do we stop haunting ourselves?